Willem, Marx, Bloomberg News, you were just there. You took a look at the country. What did Rousseff win? What's her prize?
Well, I think what's really interesting what you guys are talking about there is that the euphoric feeling of a lot of Brazilians starts with the start of the campaign. And what's so interesting down there is that you don't buy ad time. You're given ad time by all the major broadcasters. And then you get 10 minutes a night to put on these Hollywood-style movies talking about how wonderful the country is. And that is one of the reasons people get really, really tied up in this and think, wow, the country's going really well. If you actually look at the numbers, though, of course, unemployment there is at a record low this month. And across, the last 4 years of her term, people have seen real income gains of 10%. So ordinary Brazilians actually have very little to complain about. We're talking about these macroeconomic indicators. Of course, that's something entirely different.
And a lot of that has to do with the money that she's dispersed to people as well, right?
Yeah, hugely important are these social programs. And one of the main, tenets of her campaign were that the opposition candidate, Aécio Neves, may be taking away, curtailing some of these social programs like Bolsa Família, these cash transfer programs that have lifted, 35, 36 million Brazilians out of poverty.
Was he going to, or was that just an accusation? I mean, the campaign got kind of ugly towards the end.
She was definitely campaigning on quite negative points quite a lot of the time. Whether he was going to curtail that particular program or just reorganize it, people weren't entirely clear. He was saying, no, this is not part of my strategy at all. I want to reform it, make it more efficient, but no, I won't be cutting back for the people that need it the most.
I want to bring up a quote from last night in her acceptance speech. I was struck. She said, "From now on in Brazil, we have a debate of ideas, a clash of positions that may produce areas of consensus capable of moving our society." There was actually a different quote that I was thinking of, where she basically said, "It's easier to change when you have just a little bit of a mandate,
narrow margin,
than when you have a huge mandate." Aren't you? I mean, I'm struck by the idea that you may win re-election and promise change.
It's interesting, her entire campaign platform was around the idea of change, having been in power herself 4 years, with her party having been about 12 years. What's really interesting about what she said last night, this idea of a narrow margin allowing you more scope to do more, that may be the idea that she will actually talk to the opposition, which is not something that's always happened in Brazil.
Willem, one of the things I learned about the Argentinian study, it's all about the people involved, not only the leaders, but the cabinet members as well. What was so interesting about Neves, he was going to bring back Armenio Fraga, who was one of the stars of Daniel Jurgen's classic book, Commanding Heights. I mean, there was a name that investors knew from the past. How does this new regime or this second administration, how do they even begin to address foreign investors?
Well, it's fascinating. There's an entire cottage industry in Brazil right now centered around debating who will be the new finance minister, and there's a number of names being thrown into the hat.
Julian Emmanuel, is his name out there?
No, I don't think it is, I'm afraid.
We're grounded in New York.
But no, that is something that obviously people are looking to. They've had some real problems in terms of calming the markets. Even this morning we've seen Petrobras down 7 or 8%. That's one of the big concerns, is getting a name out there that will calm the markets.
So there's going to be a change of regime no matter what?
Absolutely. She has promised huge changes in her cabinet. In fact, last night her energy and mining minister said he was definitely stepping down. She's promised wholesale change throughout her cabinet. We don't know any of the names yet.
But do we know what her theme is versus what we saw?
Change.
Has she promised
audacity?
Policies, or is it just people?
Hope.
No, she's talked about becoming more efficient, and obviously one of the things she's put forward as a proposition is a plebiscite. She wants to look at political reform.
Okay.
One of the big struggles she's faced is corruption, so she's trying to deal with that.
And Drew, what's great about this, we have two guys on the desk. Scarlett and I, we are tethered. You don't see it, folks, but underneath the desk, I have a pair of handcuffs around my right ankle. Greeley World Cup. Marx, Brazil, whenever he wants to go. When you get off the airplane, when you go in the restaurants, what do you actually feel there, away from the fat cats?
Hunger, because I see some fantastic Brazilian food in front of me, typically is the first response. But no, you do. There is a city like Sao Paulo or Rio. Obviously, there's a huge wealth disparity. That has been really growing dramatically under her.
It's worse than it was under hers.
It is.
And then you were away from these centers, right?
I was outside of Sao Paulo, and I was up north, where it's much poorer up north. But I called a friend in Sao Paulo, or outside Sao Paulo last night, and I said, "Did you vote?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Who'd you vote for?" She said, "I'm not going to tell you." And she said, "But I will tell you this. Under Rousseff, at least we know how bad it's going to get." So it's not a ringing endorsement.
Yet at the same time, Dilma has managed to maintain record low unemployment, as you mentioned, Willem, even as GDP shrank in the first half. Drew, what is she doing correctly, if anything?
Well, I mean, at this point, it's the devil you know, right? I mean, that's always the important thing. Is as your friend said, if you know how bad it's going to get, then you have some sort of downside. You can price that tail in.
Well,
if you vote for someone new, you don't know where the tails are, so it's harder to price the risk, and so you become more conservative.
Drew, I know you do U.S. economics. I want to get some IMF perspective. Here's a chart, and this is a quote from one of our wonderful articles on this, a systematic derating, I'll say. This is the ETF on the Brazilian Bovespa right now rolling over. I mean, do you frame the growth economies, both of you, but Drew particularly, let's start with you. Do you frame the growth economies as a new 4% or a new 3%? Those days of 6 and 7% are just gone?
Well, I mean, it seems like everyone's kind of slowing in terms of their trend growth. You know, if it's not the developed countries developing the things that boost productivity, then who's it going to be? I mean, it usually doesn't come out of the lesser developed countries and move up. It tends to come from us and move down.
I think you just described the new mediocrity. It's a great phrase. I think I'll coin it.
Willem, Marx, Bloomberg News, thank you. Now go somewhere exotic again.
I'll try.
Where are you heading to next? Seriously.
Working on North Africa.
To Tunisia.
Yeah, potentially.
Please. I think that, to me, that was the most interesting election of the four.
Yeah.
Yeah, the secular victory. Not official yet, right?
No.
Willem Marx, the tannest of our correspondents.
You know that.
I'll take it.